Alright, today I'm going to talk about composition, mostly in terms of proportion, scale, shape, size, that sort of thing. Because I generally don't have a good handle on compositions myself, I usually, put stuff in the middle of a page and it's crap. But once in a while, you put together a finished piece, and to make sure it's good, you want to have a good composition. So my idea was basically to sketch out each square has like a sort of composition, right? And what we want is balance between light and dark, shape, size, proportion. So I just kind of experimented here. And just, trying different ideas. I think a really good way to understand composition is to look at good works of art. Like a lot of Renaissance paintings, for instance, but they usually have like the same basic composition, and it's not necessarily all that interesting. They get kind of repetitive. But comic books, photography, landscapes, portraits, they all, elements of composition. So I drew out things, and what I found was, in a thumbnail size, things really don't look that bad, Just make a shape, put other shapes inside, and there you go. The problem I find is when you scale things up, they don't really look as good. So what I did was I picked 3 of those little thumbnails and blew it up. So I picked like this one. Yep. This one. And I kind of went with the nub, the nub theory, the nub technique, making little things. And as a composition, I don't think this is too bad. Since they're blobbies, it's okay that everything is off center. I think I was reading about this a little bit, and what people kind of said was don't put things right in the center. Don't have like a middle line. I'll show you. I had like two of these and on the same piece of paper. I cut them in half. If we just had like this as a composition, actually not that bad. But what their point is, I think, is if you are seeing things evenly spaced, like a ruler, I don't know if I can't really, like this, you see that these are all evenly spaced. You would notice quite readily if one of these numbers was a little bit shorter on one side. And if all the other ones are, even, and one is out, even just a little bit, your eye can pick that up. So you can use that to your advantage and have a pattern with something sort of offset, and it'll draw your eye to it, which is why, putting something off to the center is a better composition than having everything in the middle. Although it's perfectly fine to put things right in the middle, but if you do that, you will sort of want to see things, kind of evenly spaced. You want to see, and because this camera is like weird fisheye, it's not going to look even, so I have to look at the at the screen to get things kind of even. So that's, that's my composition. It's okay. It's, we're still missing some content here. So my idea was to pick a handful of these, and I did that, and I realized, this is okay, but it's kind of boring. We have our nubs, they look okay, we have pattern, and the reason why I colored them was because by themselves, like empty, there's a lot of space there, and if there's a lot of space, we don't really like it. Right, so I kind of noticed that. So what I did, let's flip it over, was make a series of smaller blobs. And these I drew on the same paper, same type of paper, colored nubs, and cut them out. So I made a bunch of these. Individually, I don't really think that this particular thing as an element necessarily needs to have, compositional ideas. It can, but it doesn't have to. Like, it's only when you start arranging elements that you kind of have to worry about composition. That's weird. So I made a handful of little doodads, and I again colored them marker, just because you need a bit of pattern, otherwise they look pretty boring. Also with the color, I chose relatively primary colors, like not the primary colors. Yellow, red, green, bit of purple, blue, right? Just shapes, right? And you could do this with any shape. If you start using geometric shapes, you really have to concentrate more on spacing. Like, you probably have to measure things out. But just with like little blobs, not so much. Don't need to measure, just kind of put them, they look okay. So I also thought when I was doing these other guys, we have a guy there. How does this look? It looks, this looks kind of empty, so you put something on there. That looks a bit better. Could be anything. Could be like that. A bit better. Put it in the center. I don't know. No. I kind of like it over there. And with the same idea, I made smaller little blobs, just because. And I thought I could kind of put a little bit more interest in here with a bit of detail and a bit of things. And this is a bit more interesting. So what like, again, this is just sort of experimentation, because I don't really have a thought about this. I was just kind of working with composition. How does it work? Like this? I don't know. Is this better? What if I only use the small ones? That's something. And you also have to, think about in your composition where it's going to be. Let's say this is representing a real thing. Our brains are attuned to having something in the foreground, a kind of, what do you call that? Like your personal space. So this little red and yellow thing has a little bit of personal space that he wants. And in the background, you can have, you know, a couple things going on. And you can even have it behind or whatever, right? So I thought, you know, just kind of play around. I made something a little bit more geometric, and this thinking about it, looks flat. Everything here looks like it's in the foreground, which for a scene isn't terrible, but you know, it's not great because it looks flat. And that's again, if that's what you're going for, great. If not, well, you know, something to be aware of. Let's see. I also made, you know, a larger blobby scene. And for this, like in terms of proportion, like this scene is half the area of that, because I just cut it in half. And these were, how many were there? Divided into 6 or 8. I think I divided it into 8. So I had basically 8 things that I made. And you know, trying to cram them all, everything in here now, it's that's way too much is going on. You're losing me. But if you stack them, it's not, again, because of the colors and lines, it's a little confusing, but not so bad. Like, because around them, they sort of have their personal space, and then, you know, a little blob or a green and orange cloud thing going on in the back. But again, this is too much happening right there. I think talking about size and shape, it really depends on what you're going after. Remembering that something that stands out of the pattern is going to stand out. So graphic design elements can also be a good resource for this. You know, get a book on graphic design and proportion and shape. But that's basically all I wanted to talk about. The point is, if you want to get better at it, it's to do it. You need to practice making things to get better, and you'll kind of figure out the things you like. Like, it turns out I like making blobs and cutting them out, so that's what I did. And that was a great way to practice making little compositions. So if I have a real idea, I can, you know, use this as a reference. And also sort of as a guideline, I can think about a background, put it in, but also, you know, it's good to practice other things like photography, taking pictures, and think about framing and composition. That pretty much wraps it up. So today was about composition, and just have fun, think about personal space, And yeah, great.